Welcome back to American Agenda. A disturbing story out of Minneapolis where a school bus driver was randomly shot in the head. And at the time, there were kids on board the school bus. The driver suffering non-life-threatening injuries, believe it or not. The children taken home by police.
Well, this is just another instance of the coast-to-coast crime wave and violence crippling our nation. It's gotten so bad that NYPD is now pulling 658 officers from their jobs to help combat violent crime. Joining us now to discuss is our panel, Daily Caller reporter and Newsmax contributor Chrissy Clark, and host of Stacy on the Right on SiriusXM and Project 21 co-chair Stacy Washington. Thank you both for joining us. Stacy, just your overall thoughts when we hear about this, really starting to happen in communities all across this country, but they're in New York City. What they're doing is having to take some officers off of the street to specifically help fight this.
So taking officers off of the desk and putting them on patrol is something that should be done. I think they should actually reduce the number of desk officers that they have, but it should be done in an orderly fashion. So instead of this knee-jerk reaction where you're just taking people off the desk and sticking them on the streets of New York, which are rough and crime is up 46%, from last year, this is disorganized. It's like, oh, there's a fire, we have to put it out. We're using emergency measures, as opposed to saying these officers who've been riding the desk need training. They need to be taken out on ride-alongs. They need to be reacclimated to street work. And then once they've been reacclimated, then you start assigning them to, foot patrols and to car patrols. That's not what's happening here. I don't agree with it, but desperate times call for these kinds of stopgap measures.
Chrissy, I wanted to ask you about this. We've seen a lot of stuff done by homeless people. I mean, the problem with homeless, I never wish that on them, and sometimes try to help them in some fashion. But some of them, I'm sorry, they're crazy, and you don't know what they're going to do. We've seen incidents of that. We saw somebody with a bat hit somebody in the head. And the woman who was pushed in front of the subway here a couple weeks ago, done by a homeless person. Several nonprofits and a mayor in California's Bay Area are now asking landlords and residents to take in vagrants as the homeless situation there has gotten out of control. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it just goes to show how public policy is ultimately failing people in California. These people are not on the streets simply because of bad decision after bad decision. There are policies enacted that really do keep them on the street or motivate them to stay in these places. Why would you want to go on, into work where you'd make less money than being on government welfare programs, or living in an even worse situation than, living in a tent encampment that is being provided to you by the California government? Why would you not want to do that? So I think it starts with providing services through the government for mental health initiatives instead of just providing crack pipes for drug addicts to continue smoking in the comfort of California residents' homes.
Yeah, Stacy, the situation's gotten so bad in Venice Beach specifically that residents may now sue for millions, saying that officials are putting their lives at risk. So what do you think about that, residents now being able to sue?
Well, I mean, that's an appropriate remedy when your elected officials are refusing to do their jobs. But I want to just make a point here. We do have data, extensive data on homelessness in America. And a number of cities have done a great job of ameliorating their homeless issue by providing homes they're called tiny home communities. There's a community center with counseling and showers and everything available in a center hub. And then there's houses around it. If someone is persistently homeless, that's homeless for more than 12 months, they have a much higher incidence of refusing to be rehomed when the opportunity is available. So the most pressing issue here is to get to people before they've been homeless for 12 months. And for people who are mentally ill, to get them into treatment facilities, residential treatment facilities, where they can receive medication and therapy to assist them with living normal life.
Yeah,
so, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, they need help. One of the frustrating things for me is every week I'll go through Union Station and D.C., and there are a bunch of homeless people that live out right in front of it, tent after tent. And I always feel bad because I see student groups walking through also. They get off the train, they're excited, there's the Capitol, and then they see that. And it's really a mixed message.
I went, there's a lady who is homeless who has set up her own camp outside of my apartment complex. And I went and spoke with her because they have been gradually moving her a little bit further down the street because her belongings are in trash bags and they line the street at this point. So they were moving her down. And this was a couple weeks ago when it was really, really cold. And she is of complete clear mind. She spoke to me. I went back the next day to check on her. I took her gloves and some warming mitts and things. And she was not in a shelter. She was going to go that night. But she has not been in a shelter because the type of homeless people that are here in New York City specifically have changed. And it's not just people down on their luck. These are violent criminals and drug addicts that you see now on the streets of New York City.
That's a problem, is mixing those. Yeah, there's got to be some way to address that.
So they're a danger to even the homeless people.
Because there was a homeless guy the other day that I gave some food to 2 out of 3 days. I was feeling bad for him because it was so cold, like you said. But it gets dangerous. They won't go there because it's dangerous. All right, we haven't solved this, but we've certainly thrown out the problem, and we didn't get into the prosecuting the crime.
Yeah, it goes back to drugs, though, all of it.
All right, stand by. We've got more coming up.